If it benefits, disclaimer, this video is for educational purpose. No one's rights have been violated intentionally. If it benefits you, thank us by liking, commenting and sharing it, and by subscribing the channel.
Class 12. Subject, Gen English. Book, Flamingo. Chapter 2. Lost Spring. About the author. About the author. Her notable works. Her notable.
Anais Jung was born in 1964. She hails from an aristocratic family in Hyderabad. Her father, Nawab Hashir Jung, was a renowned scholar and poet. He served as the Musaib advisor to the last Nizam, Prince of Hyderabad state. The mother and the brother of Anais were also Urdu poets. Anais studied at Osmania University in Hyderabad and at the University of Michigan, USA. She holds masters in sociology. She is now a writer, journalist and columnist, sociology. She is now a writer, journalist and columnist. She is noted for the depiction of Muslim women behind the purdah. She lives in Delhi now and works for several newspapers.
Her notable works. Breaking the Silence, 1997. Seven Sisters, 1994. Beyond the Courtyard, 2003. Night of the New Moon, Encounters with Muslim Women in India, 1993. Lost Spring, Stories of Stolen Childhood, 2005. When a Place Becomes a Person, 1977. The Song of India, 1990. Unveiling India, 1987.
Anais Jung is a Muslim writer. She has named this lesson Lost Spring. Spring here refers to childhood. Spring is the first season of the year. Childhood is the first stage of life. So lost spring means miserable childhood. Children must be fed well, clothed and educated. When they are asked to work or find usable things in dirt, it is a matter of shame.
Introduction. Introduction. Notice these expressions.
The chapter titled Lost Spring outlines the miserable life lived by the children of India. Chapter titled Lost Spring outlines the miserable life lived by the children of India. There is no doubt that a huge percentage of Indian population has hardly anything to eat. It is homeless and it cannot afford clothes. The author, Anais Jung, introduces the readers to two kids, Sahil Alam and Mukesh, who represent their poor and unfortunate communities. Sahil Alam is a Muslim kid and he is a rag picker. He wants to study but cannot afford it. He, finally, works in a tea stall for 800 rupees a month. Mukesh is a Hindu kid whose dream is to buy a car. His family lives in a hut in a dirty area and is making bangles. He finally plans to become a motor mechanic. To sum up, the author wants the readers to know about the poor people of India whose lives are worse than stray animals. Let's read the lesson and find out more about Sahil Alam, Mukesh and others.
Notice these expressions in the text. Infer their Notice these expressions in the text. Infer their meaning from the context. Looking for, searching for. Slog their daylight hours, work hard during the daytime. roof over his head, home. Perpetual state of poverty, permanently poor. Dark hutments, a number of huts built next to one another. Impose the baggage on the child, force the profession on the child. Text. Part 1. Sometimes I find a rupee in the garbage. Meaning, sometimes the poor Muslim boy, Saheb, finds a rupee in the dirt or rubbish. Why do you do this? I ask Saheb, whom I encounter every morning scrounging, meaning, hunting, for gold in the garbage dumps of my neighborhood. Saheb left his home long ago. Set amidst the green fields of Dhaka, his home is not even a distant memory. There were many storms that swept away their fields and homes, his mother tells him. That's why they left, looking for gold in the big city where he now lives. I have nothing else to do, he mutters, meaning, speaks in low voice, looking away. Go to school, I say glibly, meaning, non-seriously, realizing immediately how hollow the advice must sound. There is no school in my neighborhood. When they build one, I will go. If I start a school, will you come? I ask, half joking. Yes, he says, smiling broadly. A few days later I see him running up to me. Is your school ready? It takes longer to build a school, I say, embarrassed, meaning, ashamed, at having made a promise that was not meant. But promises like mine abound in every corner of his bleak world. Meaning, unhappy world. After months of knowing him, I asked him his name. Saheb Alam, he announces. He does not know what it means. If he knew its meaning, Lord of the universe, he would have a hard time believing it. Unaware of what his name represents, he roams the streets with his friends, an army of barefoot boys who appear like the morning birds and disappear at noon. Over the months, I have come to recognize each of them. Why aren't you wearing chappals? I ask one. My mother did not bring them down from the shelf, he answers simply. Even if she did, he will throw them off, adds another who is wearing shoes that do not match. When I comment on it, he shuffles, meaning, reorders, his feet and says nothing. I want shoes, says a third boy who has never owned a pair all his life. Traveling. Across the country I have seen children walking barefoot, in cities, on village roads. It is not lack of money but a tradition to stay barefoot, is one explanation. I wonder if this is only an excuse to explain away a perpetual state of poverty. Meaning, the state of being permanently poor. I remember a story a man from UDP once told me. As a young boy he would go to school past an old temple, where his father was a priest. He would stop briefly at the temple and pray for a pair of shoes. 30 years later I visited his town and the temple, which was now drowned in an air of desolation. Meaning, the temple was forgotten by the people. In the backyard, where lived the new priest, there were red and white plastic chairs. A young boy dressed in a gray uniform, wearing socks and shoes, arrived panting and threw his school bag on a folding bed. meaning foldable bed. Looking at the boy, I remembered the prayer another boy had made to the goddess when he had finally got a pair of shoes. Let me never lose them. The goddess had granted his prayer. Young boys like the son of the priest now wore shoes. But many others like the
rag pickers, meaning poor people who look for usable items on the hills of dirt and rubbish in my neighborhood, remain shoeless.
My acquaintance with the barefoot rag pickers leads me to see Simapuri, a place on the periphery of Delhi yet miles away from it, metaphorically. Those who live here are squatters, meaning unwanted refugees, who came from Bangladesh back in 1971. Saheb's family is among them. Simapuri was then a wilderness. It still is, but it is no longer empty. In structures of mud, with roofs of tin and tarpaulin, meaning a waterproof sheet, devoid of sewage, drainage or running water, live 10,000 ragpickers. They have lived here for more than 30 years without an identity, without permits but with ration cards that get their names on voters' lists and enable them to buy grain. Food is more important for survival than an identity.
Food is more important for survival than an identity. If at the end of the day we can feed our families and go to bed without an aching stomach, we would rather live here than in the fields that gave us no grain, say a group of women in tattered saris, meaning torn scarves.
When I ask them why they left their beautiful land of green fields and rivers, wherever they find food, they pitch their tents that become transit homes. Meaning, temporary shelters, children grow up in them, becoming partners in survival. And survival in Simapuri means rag picking. Through the years, it has acquired the proportions of a fine art. Garbage to them is gold. It is their daily bread.
Garbage to them is gold. It is their daily bread, a roof over their heads, even if it is a leaking roof. But for a child it is even more.
I sometimes find a rupee, even a 10 rupee note, Saheb says, his eyes lighting up. When you can find a silver coin in a heap of garbage, you don't stop scrounging, for there is hope of finding more. It seems that for children, garbage has a meaning different from what it means to their parents. For the children it is wrapped in wonder, meaning something full with sweet surprises for the poor children. For the elders it is a means of survival. One winter morning I see Saheb standing by the fence gate of the neighborhood club, watching two young men dressed in white, playing tennis. I like the game, he hums, content to watch it standing behind the fence. I go inside when no one is around, he admits. The gatekeeper lets me use the swing. Meaning, a hanging seat in a children's playground. Saheb too is wearing tennis shoes that look strange over his discolored shirt and shorts. Someone gave them to me, he says in the manner of an explanation. The fact that they are discarded shoes of some rich boy, who perhaps refused to wear them because of a hole in one of them, does not bother him. For one who has walked barefoot, even shoes with a hole is a dream come true. But the game he is watching so intently is out of his reach. This morning, Saheb is on his way to the milk booth. In his hand is a steel canister. Meaning, a container. I now work in a tea stall down the road, he says, pointing in the distance. I am paid 800 rupees and all my meals. Does he like the job? I ask. His face, I see, has lost the carefree look. The steel canister seems heavier than the plastic bag he would carry so lightly over his shoulder. The bag was his. The canister belongs to the man who owns the tea shop. Saheb is no longer his own master. The end of part 1. Homework for the students. Draw the character sketch of Saheb-e-Alam. What is the solution to child labor in India?
My beautiful students, write the answers of these 2 questions on sheets and WhatsApp me the pics of them. Also give me your feedback so that I can improve these video lessons. Don't waste your time during this pandemic. Keep studying. Stay safe.